So
Right.
hey everyone, welcome back to Remember Who You Are Summit. And today I have an amazing lady and she's Ulrika Sullivan. She's a certified life coach, yoga teacher, energy healer, podcast host and writer. Her passion is to help women connect to their inner calm and life balance. Ulrika combines intuitive coaching, universal spiritual principles, energy healing, astrology, human design. Oh, I have to ask you about that one. Yoga, meditation, crystals, cards, and essential oils in her practice. Welcome. And you're from Boston, Massachusetts, from the United
Yes, thank
States.
you, Melody. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful series. And I'm excited to talk about all the good stuff that we're going to talk about today.
Yes, I'm really excited about this. So thank you for your time. Yeah, so today we want to talk about how do you tap into our intuition and live the life of flow and ease. And we're going to be, I guess, talking a lot more about spirituality and all those things, delicious things. So, yeah. So what led you into the journey of being a spiritual coach?
So I haven't always been a spiritual life coach by any means. I spent about 20 plus years in a corporate position, starting out and living my career, almost being a person who had it all, right? Both a very high paid job, great career, family, and everything that you could ask for, really. But a few years ago, a lot of basically what happened, bottom line is that the universe kicked me out of my existing career and pivoted. I made a complete shift to a new career as a life coach and at the same time going through a spiritual awakening. So what I do now is really my life's work. And of course, this is the short story, right? But it's happening to so many people at this time that were having this inner inquiry, if you will, that there's more, because that's what happened to me. I realized that I want to serve others in a different way, in a deeper way. I couldn't, in my corporate job, I found myself not having the deep conversations that I so longed for, I was ready for. And that's what I get to have now in my coaching practice, helping others on that same path of awakening to your next chapter in life.
Yeah, definitely. This is much more interesting than a lot of the work that I used to do. So what does it mean about being a spiritual person? What does that really mean?
That's a great question. For me, the way I see spirituality, it's a very personal experience, but I can only speak for myself, and what I experience through my clients as well is that it's this expansion, this feeling of expansion, and living not just through the five senses that we sometimes feel are limiting us. There is so much more to experience, which is the spiritual, the universal world of energy, of synchronicities, of manifestation, working with energy that is really a different way of looking at our lives. So it's that shift from, sometimes we have a job and a day-to-day and our practical chores and all of that. But in addition to all of that, because I see it as an expansion. We don't have to sacrifice what we have and what we enjoy in the physical world, right? But we add another layer to life by expanding and discovering our spiritual self. That's how I see it.
Wow. So it's kind of like you're living in another realm somewhere, in your mind. You have I guess you're tapping into a lot more than what you actually see.
Yeah, it's that combination. It's that expansion. Of course, as humans, we have a physical world that we're living our daily lives, but it's an enrichment to experience also, so much more that we can do. And also a lot of people that I come across are often coming to me because they're stuck, or they're feeling that there is more to their life, but they can't really find a way or navigate what is their next step, or how do they tap into their own inner wisdom. And that's where I come in.
So we have the senses, and intuition is such a big part. How is intuition really important for us?
Intuition is so important because it's another way of getting to know ourselves and others, actually, because intuition is truth, really. Truth, our own truth. And I usually, when somebody asks me why intuition is important, or what is intuition, it really is a guidance system that always is right for you. Because in our human world and in our day-to-day, it's always like something that's wrong or right. It's black or white. But when we use our intuition, it only is. It's not a duality. It's like just is. So it's and sometimes I call it our inner wisdom, or our true self, because our true self, as expressed and used through the intuition of ourselves, it's just a truth. It's not a yes or a no. It's not a good or a bad. It just is. And what a great thing to tap into, right? Because it provides us with our authenticity. It provides us with our truth, basically, if we are using our intuition and trusting it, because that's the other part to intuition. It requires trust, and that's something that we all are working on.
Yeah, because I know, when we actually set goals and things like that, and when we're going for something that we really want, oops, there goes my poster. So when we go for something that we really want, it's very, I guess we can't see the steps going forward. And so we have to rely on that intuition piece to go forward. How often, because we were talking about omens and signs and things, and how often do we miss signs and these little nudges and things like that? Can you tell us little examples of how they could actually be guiding us? I know you're working with numbers and all sorts of different things, and you probably be much more in tune with the little things, even what people say, or little signs and whatnot around you that most people would probably just ignore because they're looking for verbal signs and instructions, clear, written instructions, whereas the universe doesn't work in that way.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought this up, because first of all, everyone has access to these signs and synchronicities that are around us at all times. And as you just said, it's a matter of if we're tapping into them or not, if we're noticing them or not, or if we choose to take them in and trust them, so to say. So it is really I would say it's really a choice if we want to be broadening our antenna that way or not. But it often starts with that we're starting to ask ourselves questions like, why is it this way? Or why am I seeing this repeatedly, for example? So it often starts that we are willing to notice patterns in our life, whether it's something that shows up repeatedly. Let's say you see a butterfly 3 days in a row, right? That's a sign, but sometimes somebody can choose to, like, that's not a thing for me, right? 3 days in a row and a butterfly. Sometimes we ignore it, right? So there are often signs and synchronicities all throughout our lives. And often it's easy to also look back like, because in hindsight, we sometimes realize why certain things happened, or things that showed up in the right place and in the right time. We often notice that in hindsight when it already has happened, let's say a week ago or 5 years ago. But what the trick here is to really use and pick up those signs and synchronicities, to use it for future prediction and discernment of things that are right for you and things that are maybe not so right for somebody. So it's really a interesting practice. But it starts with that we have to be open to it. We have to be open to noticing those little nuances in our lives. And it often starts with that we're getting like the patterns repeat itself. So that's
because I totally agree. Like, it's like, looking back in hindsight, you can see that, oh, that's probably why I was delayed, or that's probably why, I kept on, bumping into things or something like that. I guess probably the real question is like, what's really stopping us from tapping into that intuition to really, get into this space of awareness.
Yes.
Do you work with people like that to clear that out with them?
All the time. Yes. And it often starts with that somebody comes to me, or for example, somebody that feels stuck or disconnected from their life, or just have lost passion for life, or whatever you come up with. It's often that we have disconnected from our own energy. And often we get influenced by external events or other people around us. So we disconnect from our own. We don't listen to ourselves anymore. So the first step, and also secondly, I would say that what I experienced personally in the corporate world is that the pace was so fast. And we're conditioned to live a very fast-paced life because we think that's how we accomplish things, by multitasking and doing 150 things at the same time, right? That's how we accomplish. But the truth of the matter is that to tap into your intuition is to slow down. And
it's a scary place for a lot of people.
It's very scary. Goodness, yes. It's so scary to slow down because we feel that we're losing something, right? Or we're not there at the forefront if we're not, feeling that fast momentum. But the gateway to really tap into your intuition is first to slow down. And often people are drawn to practices such as meditation, yoga, to just allow, and I use that word intentionally, to allow ourselves to just listen to ourselves, because within that space, your intuition is very active. So,
yeah. So it's quite now, because I remember somebody, I think somebody was talking to me and told me that, because we're so conditioned in doing, as you're saying, like doing, getting from one task to the next, don't waste time in between. And it's just mental hurry. But I think one of my coaches, she said that, talking about the art of surrendering, and she said even having a rest is actually part of the doing. And I think that was like a complete paradigm shift. For me, it's like, well, what do you mean having a rest is like part of the doing? Self-care is part of the doing, and we need that space to unwind and let ideas and things to kind of unravel themselves and come back to us. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So that is
So
often a big shift for many to
yeah,
not only realize that mentally that is what it takes, but actually to do it, to embody that
yeah,
shift. And that is can
yeah,
take it's a process. It can take a while, but and often that opens up the doors to other experiences, more deeper experiences of life, where intuition can be integrated and be part of, everyday life. It's not just something that goes on in certain situations, right? It's something that we integrate to be, who we are, because everyone has intuition, everyone has it. It's just a matter of if we want to invite it to be part of our life or not. And I think it's starting to shift a lot, that now people are getting more curious about why does she seem so happy and calm, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you definitely seem like very calm. And I notice that a lot of people, meditation is such a big thing nowadays. Um, is and do you have like a particular meditation method? Like, what is the first step in doing that? Because I know that if you're working with really busy, executives and so forth, sitting there and just emptying their mind is probably a very scary place. And just,
Right. Yes, and it's very scary to let go of that busyness. And what I often start with is not a prescription of this is what you need to do. I don't start that way. I start with an exploration of what comes naturally to the individual. Because what comes, and if we take the topic of meditation, for example, there are so many ways you can meditate. And often people often think that it has to be done in a certain way to be effective. I get a lot of questions like, do I do this right? Do I do it right? And my answer to that is, it's depending on what works for you. And there's an element of trust in that as well, that often people need to work up that trust. Maybe for some, it's a walking meditation that is more aligned to their energy, their natural energy to go about it. For some, it is to sit on a chair for 10 minutes. For some, it's to sit cross-legged for an hour. But the biggest advice I give there is that go on an exploration of what really works for you, because there is no formula that goes that that's the thing. We think we can just buy the best course or read the next book and get the answer, but what we really get is inspiration. But then the next layer is to figure out what works for ourselves and have the courage to go about and just do that.
And I guess the question is like, what are they aiming for? How do they know that they're starting to get some sort of breakthrough in that area? So what are some of the signs, I guess? What are they looking for? Because from the experience.
It's a very good question, because what we're looking for is, when we're starting a journey of awakening or opening up to intuition, is not always what we think it is. But what I look for as a coach is that energy shift in somebody. When somebody tells me like, I've never experienced that like this before. I've never thought of it this way. That's the energy shift that makes a difference, that helps somebody to evolve. So it really is also, again, a sign that evolution has happened, and let's say an energy knot has been released from somebody's preconceived notion of what they're looking for, right? So and what they're looking for is different for each person, so it's very important to have that dialogue back and forth, and within ourselves, how do I really feel about this? And also dare to say, I feel good. Dare to say, I feel good today. Because often we just strive forward. We just don't want to admit that we're actually in the moment feeling really good. Because if we admit that to ourselves, we might, put the foot off the gas pedal. And, it's scary to feel good too, because, we're not supposed to. Yeah.
That's so real. I think, we actually, measure our progress or through the results that we get, maybe hitting a particular target. And when we don't hit that target, we don't think that we've actually, succeeded. And that's something that I had to learn to just to take each moment and just celebrate the small things. And even just shifting, as you're saying, shifting in the way that you feel about yourself is a great big, breakthrough.
It is, yes. And with tapping into your intuition, this noticing of the shift, we will begin to notice that as the more we're kind of practicing catching ourselves and saying, how do I feel in the moment, for example? And I notice a difference now from yesterday, let's say, and actually take that in and integrate that. So it is really that inner dialogue that is enhanced, if you will, when you tap into your intuition, so that the dialogue is not always with the external world at all times. It is more on the inside, and that is okay to have.
Do you find that when people do start to slow down and do all that work, do they have like a, what do you call it, like a mental kind of vomit kind of experience where they just like a lot of things come up and you have to guide them through that process? Maybe, emotions that's been trapped inside for a while. And I think that's where the scary part is for a lot of people. They don't want to do that meditation thing for themselves, or they're afraid that if those emotions come up, then they're doing something wrong.
Yes, and often just for that reason, I advise also, I can tell pretty early in the process with somebody if there's, a need for therapy in parallel with coaching, because past traumas, everyone have past traumas. And obviously when we start to acknowledge ourselves and in that way, it also provides a release from past trauma to some extent. But I definitely recommend, therapy for some and some not, because it's not always that releasing emotions from the past have to be scary. It can be an elated, happy experience as well. So it really depends. It really depends on what energy that needs to be released. And often I also recommend, working with the body as well in parallel. I'm also an energy healer. So I understand the dynamic that we have. We hold energy and emotions in the body. So when somebody really wants to evolve and is on that path, the body will need to be involved as well in that evolution. So, getting energy healing is very important as well, I feel. And other modalities as well, acupuncture. And again, this is an exploration for what is the person interested in, what works for you. And often we know that inside, like I'm more drawn to this than that. So yeah, and it's important for me to help navigate that field as well for somebody, because we are not detached from our body. Our body is an energy field, right? So when we release inner inner energy knots in the body. It also, or emotionally, the body is impacted as well.
So you have in there, you mentioned human design. What is that human design? Because I did come across somebody doing some sort of charter thing. Is that what you're talking about? Like where you
so
work out your different... It's fascinating. I just started to look into that.
Yes, you should. And I'm a student of both astrology and human design, because one of the things that we want to learn more about is our own energy imprint. At least that's part of what I teach, and what I'm believe is where we can actually learn more about our natural energy and our preferences for certain things is through tools like, or systems like, astrology and human design. Now, human design is I would describe it as and there are many other people that can describe this better than me, but it's a combination of ancient wisdom systems such as astrology, I Ching, other, all it's a combined system. But what you need to be able to get, let's say, information, you can get a chart, and it's based on your birth time and location, similarly to if you pull an natal astrology chart. But the information that you get is really interesting. In human design specifically, is giving you a really great picture of what is your natural energy and your preferences, and there's also actually a business version of it as well that helps also give us guidance on how we what are some of the preferences in a workplace, for example, that we may want to consider. For example, I learned about myself that I function best when I'm in a teacher mode, when I'm a teacher, and I'm not kind of a person who is supposed to do, be in for example, in a sales position where you actually go and talk to a lot of people in a day, for example. So I'm more of a person who people come to when they see what I can offer, versus others are designed to actually go out and look for opportunities. So it's an energy preference that we are born with. And this is a very simple example. There's many, many layers to this system. And similarly to astrology, our natal astrology chart is really an imprint of our strengths and weaknesses, in a sense, and where we may need to, where the opportunity to work on things in this life. So I find it very, very useful when I work with somebody, because I can see right away where some of their challenges are, where some of the opportunities are, and looking at patterns in their life to say, hey, have you, and this is a learning experience driven by the individual itself, right? So I'm just helping to navigate through that insight that they can get through those type of tools, because it's all about self-discovery. We want to learn more about who we are.
I find that so fascinating, because like my grandmother, she's like she used to have this Chinese zodiac book, which was like kind of like a Bible, and she'll look at it, and every time there's a child born, she'll measure, like, based on the time and date and everything, like how heavy they are and what they're good at, and they're kind of like mapping out their life. It's really fascinating. And even looking up, like, which day is good to move, to, do celebrations and all, have weddings and things like that. For me, it's like, it's so fascinating. How is it that, those things, like the time of day and those zodiacs, really, how does it affect us? Because for me, it's still such an enigma. How's that determine our life and I guess our strengths and where we actually fit into this world?
Yes. Yeah, and it's a big question, obviously, but and sometimes the way I think about for example, the impact of the sun on the earth, if we're thinking about, like, we could not live without our sun, right? That's an celestial body that has such an impact on us. And there's so many other celestial bodies out in the universe. So why wouldn't they also, have an impact on us? And and as we know, they all rotate, right, in cycles. So it may be that one day is better energy to move than another day, right? So to me, it's not unbelievable. It's dynamic energy that sometimes there is a better flow for certain things, and sometimes there is things for introspection, like movement versus, what do you call it? Movement versus staying still, if you will.
Yeah.
So
I guess what we have to come back to is like where we energy, and maybe, as you said, those planets or certain shifts in the solar system, their position can affect the energy levels around in the Earth. So it's starting to make sense. It's just I find it really fascinating where we can actually go and there is kind of like some sort of structure in place that we can actually refer back to that could shine a light on why we do certain things, why do we thrive in certain ways, and to I guess tap into more of the potential that maybe we have not really looked at before. So
yeah. And if we take a big picture out of on this, it really is ancient wisdom that has been studied for thousands of years that we are in some ways, rediscovering, tapping into again, because it's also cyclical, right?
Yeah.
And now may be the time to apply and combine our modern technology with ancient wisdom and other systems that we may not have paid attention to for various reasons for a long time. But it's fascinating.
It makes me feel like the people in the past were so much more wiser than we imagined, to be able to do all these complex calculations and everything and work all these out. And I guess now it's coming back to that and realizing how amazing this wisdom is, because we've been so lost in, I guess, like, through the hustle and bustle, we forget all these things.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. It's fascinating what you study. The more I look into it, the more like I'm thinking, oh my God, there is kind of like a map. There is kind of like, it's like looking at like this big, I guess, opening up this little Pandora box of like, this is who you are. This is like, this is what you do. This is where your strengths are. And, because I remember doing my chart, and it's, I think I was kind of like a builder, like someone who is more of like, rather than the person who comes up with the ideas and things, this person who's like kind of more of the builder. And I have emotional solar plex, whatever it is. So I have to be a bit more patient with myself rather than going in and just rushing. So I have to, I guess, learn to tap into my intuition and, wait for the nudges before I go out and, take action on certain things. So I find that really fascinating, to be able to realize, I guess, more of my personality and why I do certain things.
Yeah, and the beautiful experience sometimes when I work with somebody, they say, yes, this is me. This is really how I feel, or how it works for me. So it's a beautiful confirmation for many to recognize what they have been struggling with is completely against their own energy. And there is a choice in that moment to say, hey, I want to change this now, because I realize now that this is going to work much better for me. So, it is what we do with that insight.
Yeah. That's fascinating, because as you say, we suddenly can see the patterns in the past, why things have failed, and we get a much more clearer picture of where we are thriving. And then we can say, oh, okay, so that's how it's been, that's where the flow is. And then it's you tapping into that, you could switch into that and get more of that. And it's a really liberating experience to know there is a better way, and this is how you do it. It's actually natural, right? As you're saying, it's kind of like putting it into the natural flow of the river, whereas they've been kind of swimming, against the tide all this time.
But then also what I experience sometimes is that when somebody gets into that flow, it almost gets too easy. And then it's like, can it be this easy? Can I just receive all of this?
And they start questioning it. So that's where the self-sabotage comes back in, right?
Yeah, because we're taught also that we need to struggle to receive. We need to struggle, and so there's this whole dynamic in trusting ourselves, allowing ourselves to receive, and feeling good, and just feeling that that's normal, instead of, oh, we need to struggle so much before we get the reward. So it's a paradigm shift of insights that we all are going through and working with at the moment.
Wow. Definitely a paradigm shift for a lot of people. Wow, that's fascinating. So how do you work with clients? Like, do you do all these, so you've got the energy work, you've got the meditation, you let them unwind, so it's kind of like slowing down. How do people decide whether or not that's the way to go? Because there's so many different, I guess, modalities out there nowadays. How do they really know that, working with you, doing that, the energy work and the inside work is the way to go? Because, so many different ways.
That's a good question. And often, as I said earlier, people do come to me and we have a conversation. And often in that moment, they realize, yes, it's Ulrika I need to work with. So it is an exchange of energy, obviously, between a client and myself. We call it a match, right? Yeah. So often it's not more complicated than that. I also give options, because some people are not interested in diving into energy healing right away. But I always recommend, I have a basic way to work with a new client, and that is through the life coaching sessions. So the beauty of that is that it's a start. It's we get to know each other, and obviously that can branch out based on the first couple of sessions together. I usually, by experience, work with somebody no less than 3 months, because it takes time to integrate a life change, because many people are looking for that. They're looking for not be feeling this stuck, or they just want to navigate to their next level and experience life through other ways, such as tapping into their intuition as well. So
what are some of the biggest outcomes that people can really achieve through this?
Yes, what I see is often but often people choose to change their lifestyle, whether it's incorporating more self-care into their life, and it could be I also offer, extra support and help. If somebody wants to change their establish a morning routine, for example, and some want help with establishing a meditation practice, let's say, which is a key part of evolving self-awareness overall, I can support them in that. So it's a customized change for all of them, and it's always guided by what they feel is right for them. So it's not that I'm giving them a program to follow. It's carefully crafted together. Many, though, want to be more present in their life. They want to slow down. So those are the two biggest differences. But they also feel more connected to the universe. I also help with, if somebody wants to connect and channel, for example, intuitive journaling is where I start with somebody who wants to really start having downloads and channel. It's like the universe is the limit, right?
Wow. So it's more in tune with ideas and I guess, like, having in flow of ideas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Creative,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it all depends on how we are in aligned with our own energy. And so I would say at the basic change in somebody's life is to slow down, establish some form of self-care, self-love practice, because that's what it is, right? We need to provide ourselves with that trust and love for us to receive more in life as well, naturally. So often that's the biggest changes in the beginning. But by doing so, a lot of things are falling into place elsewhere. There may be a career change. There may be a move to a different location, but those are often changes that come naturally. It's not like a big bang and anxiety. It's with joy those changes are happening. So it's all positive in the sense.
So I guess, like, when people are stuck and they're not able to see and have a very, I guess, a clear vision of the future or anything like that, coming to you helps them to really connect to what is natural for them in terms of, if they're looking for a career change, what is natural for them based on their natural skills, their abilities, and what gives them a lot more joy, and you're able to help them connect back to that. And coming up with ideas and seeing opportunities more easily and readily, because when you do that, I guess when you get inspiration and ideas, doing things much more creatively, much more effectively and proficiently, then it's not that hard work anymore. You can step into it and get it done with much more ease. You don't have to think about the hard way anymore. Because you're using a lot of your core natural strengths to get there. So, yeah.
Yes. And often also I'm very careful to work with people so that they feel that the changes that they want to make in their life are realistic for them. Because that's also to have goals or making too big of a step can feel really scary. And the trick to really make it with joy is to design each of the changes such as it feels good, it feels realistic. Yes, let's do it tomorrow type of thing, instead of like, oh, how am I going to do this? Right.
Yeah.
So it's a different way of looking at change as well.
So it's so it's constantly feeling good and not overwhelming. So your purpose is really to get them feeling really empowered, and I guess when most people come to you, they would be feeling much more. They probably have a lot of fears, anxieties going on, and to help them to actually slow that down so that those emotions don't overtake them and maybe immobilize them, numb them down. So to have that connection.
What really happens is that many are living up in the brain, right? And what it is, it's to move our decision making down to the heart, and that energy is instead, because the brain can come up with a lot of different scenarios, and most of our stories around fear comes from mental constructs that we've been either maintaining and holding for many years. But once we bring the heart into the picture and use that energy, it becomes a different, it opens up other options in our lives when we kind of not always rely on the logic.
Yeah. And that's where the manifestation really happens. Yes. Where the heart space is opened up. So a very enlightening experience talking to you. I really enjoy this, and everything. It seems like, the whole summit is like, as I said, it's about remembering who we are. And a lot of women are feeling maybe overwhelmed and having a lot of disconnect because of how we've been conditioned in life. And to remind them that at the end of the day, to really slow down and reconnect back to who they are, and know that everything that they need was within them. And that's where that magic happens, as you say, when you tap into your true essence. And that's where you help them, through the human design, to find their true essence. And that's where the beauty is, like, synchronicities happen, all that magic and all that delicious space of feeling whole again.
Yes. And it's beautiful to watch somebody unravel in that, positive way, because there's so much more alive, more passionate and calm inside. And that's really why I do what I do.
Yeah.
When I watch that transformation happen. And it's a beautiful, I love it. It's much different from my corporate job that I had before.
Oh yeah, definitely. we have so much more, to talk about when, really in-depth things. So I love all those things that you do. You've got, like, you work with crystals, cards, essential oils, and, yoga and all these things like that. So thank you very much for your time. It's been really amazing talking to you and kind of like, have paradigm shift and time to think and slow down of how we actually are living our life. And, there gets to be an easier way. Definitely there is an easier way. We don't have to be struggling and, pushing against the grain. So you have a free gift here, and it's 7 easy ways to make space in your calendar and life. And I guess that's leading people more into self-care.
Yes, I created this. It's a 5-day email challenge. And I created that because one of the things that I notice when people come to me is that they say, I don't have time. I don't have any room in my calendar to introduce anything new. I really, I don't know how to add one more thing. So I created this 5-day challenge where you get an email and a video for 5 days from me with exercises and inspiration to not only create space in your calendar physically, but actually to create space on the inside.
Oh.
Because it all starts with willingness. And to be willing to make a change, we need to feel that it's realistic, that we have the mental space, the heart space to do that, because otherwise we're just going to wait another day, right? So what this free gift is offering is 5 days of inspiration, and actually, a way to steps to make room for you to step into something that you want to welcome into your life, whatever that is.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's lovely. That sounds like a really nice I kind of have this feeling like this kind of like this email spa experience.
Yeah, let's hope. There is a little bit of work involved. We have to kind of, do the work ourselves, but it's a way for anyone who wants to create space in your life and your calendar to welcome something new in, whatever that might be. You may be benefiting from this.
Oh, okay. So thank you very much for that. That sounds like a really amazing, challenge to do, the 5 days. And definitely, I think, we all need to kind of like, tap into, as you say, like create that space so we can start to really be aware of how we are thinking and running our days.
Yeah. And the inspiration was really also for often what we want to do is to create some more space for ourselves. And a morning routine, whether it's 5 minutes or an hour, is often the way to increase our self-care, our self-awareness for ourselves. So that was the inspiration, because a lot of people that come to me say, I don't have time. I don't do anything in the morning for myself, or I don't start my day right in the sense that it's stress from the time the alarm clock goes off, or so. Whether that's the intention that somebody wants to put in place or welcome into your life, or it's something else, but that was the inspiration, because self-care, in my opinion, is the path, the gateway to self-love as well. So
and you need that self-love to be able to tap into that intuition space.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much, Ulrika. Thank you for that gift. I'll pop that underneath the video. And it's been really amazing talking to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.